6 floors. That's just enough time to wake up, take her outside, and then running into people in the parking lot. It's like always weird. Nothing good happens. Hot like weather. Yeah, it's a warm enough. My wife and two of our brothers are out, so we got some stand-up paddle boards I haven't gone yet because they've gone the last couple Sundays. And I've, of course, been doing the show. They wanted me to go out today, and then I didn't leave till 11:30. I'm like, how's that going to work? How am I going to go with you guys and then get back by All right, Stochastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you on a Sunday morning. MLB already underway in jolly old England. You've got the Mets and Phillies playing. They did a home and home series in London. So if you are in season-long leagues, locked your transactions early, unfortunately, because, that's just the way it goes. But we've got a 1 o'clock game here, a whole bunch of 1:30 games, a couple in the 2 o'clock hour, a 3-game 4 o'clock slate. All sorts of goodness here. Matt, how are you doing? Did you take down any gigantic contests last
night? No, I didn't. I got caught up in some family stuff, so didn't even play the night slate and the day slate. Even with Peralta, I played 2 lineups in the day slate, and my best one was the first one out of cash. So sucks, but I'm going to get it back today.
It happens. It happens. I had ended up with a negative pitching score. Bradish treated me well in the early slate. Fortunately, the night slate hooked me up. Plus MMA, using those stochastic projections as well as the Sims, tripled up my money. That's not too shabby at all. I enjoyed that. I see Mike's got his EMac 2024 mug here. We've got all sorts of goodness going on today, especially with the weather. There are no issues. Mother Nature says, let's play ball. So that's going to be one concern out of the way. It's starting to warm up across the various venues. Nothing too much of note to really point out because remember, a lot of these are just 1 o'clock games. So they aren't really getting to the actual heat of the day. But let's jump on in here. Quite a few pitchers up at the top here, Matt. One of your favorites with the Motor City Kitties, Tyreek Skubal. He did not make my write-up. I mentioned him as the most productive player of the day, but sometimes it's too easy to write that stuff up. What would you like to tell the people about Mr. Skubal, who I believe is still the front runner in the American League Cy Young Award?
Yeah, he's been you can make the argument he's been the best pitcher in baseball so far this season. He's just been phenomenal. He's a guy that's had talent, and it seems like he's finally put it all together. Tough spot. The Brewers have been very, very good this year. We just saw them destroy Imanaga, who had been on a record-setting pace. That said, I'll always take the elite pitcher, even in a tougher spot. And Skubal looks like the best pitching option on today's slate. I think it's close between him and Reagans, just considering the spot. Skubal's just the better pitcher right now. He is more expensive. Those two guys are getting by far the most amount of ownership, and to me, it makes sense. There are no real cheap guys that are viable. So most of the ownership's going to expensive pitching, and they just look a lot better than everyone else. So I also like Evaldi, who we'll get to, but Reagans and Skubal both look very, very, very good. Slate considered here. How do you see it?
Essentially the same way. Reagans made my write-up, as did Grayson Rodriguez. I think, and Evaldi got mentioned. So those are kind of the 4 guys I think we want to look at here. How many starts do you think Cole Reagans has in his career?
In his career?
Major league starts.
Yeah, obviously it's low because you're asking me. I'm going to say 28.
Well, not bad. Lindquist guessed 32. The answers today will be number 35.
Okay.
Think about that. 35, and he's already essentially established himself as a frontline ace. That's
I don't know about that.
He's on the cusp. Let's say borderline. He's, I think, what, 5th or 6th, I think, in strikeouts per 9. That's with 11. Now, there's a lot of guys hurt that typically are a little bit higher than that, but that's, like Strider and Scherzer, etc. But that's, he's looking pretty sharp.
Yeah,
Grayson Rodriguez
no,
has one fewer starts than he does. So young pitchers that have really established themselves in a short period of time.
yeah, I don't want to say you're wrong about Reagan's here because obviously he's been very good. Maybe I'm a little bit slow to call him that, but excuse me, we're just talking semantics. I kind of view him like I do Garrett Crochet. Obviously, we've seen more from Reagan's though.
Yeah, no, and that's totally fair. I mean, they're still in the prove it period, right? They could look like flashes in the pan that they're fully in play, but it's impressive to think that they've got about him and Rodriguez. I mean, 35 starts is kind of a full season for baseball, and that's about where these guys are right now. Yet they've already been in the DFS world for 2 solid seasons here. So, and I see Stephen Leibowitz. If you say Nathan Eovaldi 3 times quickly, he will pop up to wish everybody a happy Nathan Eovaldi day. So the only lineup we're waiting on here is the Mariners lineup. And it is because Ty France got hit. I think he got hit in the heel with the pitch, if I remember reading that blurb 2 days ago. He did not play yesterday. We were kind of talking pre-show to see if who's going to end up getting called up here, because it's a little tricky trying to maneuver Garver, Raleigh, and Sevi Savalia. So that's what a couple of the projected lineups are. Let me look at a couple other sites here and see what they're throwing out there. We have, it's kind of the same consensus across the board here. So that probably means Garver may play a little first base. Savalia will probably catch, and then Raleigh will be a designated hitter, would be my guess. That all said, the Seattle team has almost a 27% strikeout rate against lefties this year. League average for run creation, though, they are at 100 WRC plus, so perfectly even there. A little bit of pop. They're worse against righties. They do have the fewest doubles overall. That they are now tied with Miami, so I guess they're improving a little bit here. Here is the most shocking thing that I saw this morning. They are first in the American League West with the 36-30 record. They only have a +5 run differential. Their pitching has been out of this world this year.
Yeah, I've talked to Lofty about this a bunch. Like, for me, I think Philly is really, really live to go to the World Series in the NL because they're really good. The Dodgers are slightly better, but Philly's got an amazing rotation. And in the American League, Seattle's just like a worse version of Philly. Their staff is just as good. Their lineup isn't as good, but they start putting it together and they make the playoffs, which they should, because even though their lineup hasn't been great and strikes out all the time, they've taken advantage in a weak AL West, and they've gotten a lot of clutch hits late in games. And will that continue? Who knows? But division's very weak this year, and if and when they get in the playoffs, they're live to just run the table in my eyes.
Yeah, that was the other thing I was looking at. I was like, wait, how are they first? And it's like, oh wow, they're significantly in first, because you're like, I guess Houston really has been that bad this year compared to what we normally think. Now, there's nothing a 2-week heater can't turn around things for Houston. That the Mariners start to slide a little bit, and those things can flip. But that was something that was a little surprising for me to see this morning here. So essentially, for bringing it back to DFS, really the only players that Reagans needs to navigate is going to be Rodriguez, switch hitter, Cal Raleigh, Garver, and then Dylan Moore. Dylan Moore was kind of just a platoon guy going against lefties. He's actually earned himself a spot in the lineup. He's been pretty good against righties and lefties, as well as earning a promotion up into the 2-hole for a lot of games here, just depending on usually if it's a lefty on the mound, but they have put him there a couple times against righties. And then JP Crawford leading off. He four career grand slams already for JP Crawford, which I thought was kind of funny. So Cole Reagans is kind of my number one. If we flip it back to sort of as we're parsing things out with Tariq Skubal going against the Brewers, they're okay against lefties here. A little bit below average power, 20% strikeout rate this season for their current lineup here. You're really looking at Yelich and Sanchez and Sanchez has just about 40 plate appearances against lefties. They're the best players at this point. Willy Adames, if you reach back to last year. But otherwise, you have Rhys Hoskins, who missed all of last year with his knee injury. You've got Jackson Chourio, who is, still getting his sea legs. And then they got to drop Bryce Terang all the way down to the 9-hole because he doesn't do well against lefties. So it's kind of a coin flip here for me. I still lean towards Riggins just a little bit, but I get the appeal for Skubal, absolutely. And I suspect each of the top 4 pitchers that we're going to keep talking about here will branch out to the other 2. I suspect I'll have about 35% of each across my 150 today.
Yeah, makes sense. For me, I like Riggins a lot. I might actually like Riggins more than Skubal, which I hate saying because I just think Skubal is the better pitcher right now. It's just a matchup thing. I mean, Seattle strikes out a ton, and yeah, Seattle has upside for sure, but so does Milwaukee. So I don't think it's like any safer of a spot for Skubal either. The guy that I think I'm right there with these 2 guys is Eovaldi, though. I don't think you can feel as cozy with him considering his only throwing 31 pitches and then 70 some pitches last time out. Probably doesn't get to like Kevin Gausman numbers yesterday. Nice throwback. But I think you can count him in for a full workload here. Very good matchup against the watered-down San Francisco lineup that is much better against left-handed pitching. I like Eovaldi a lot at 8,600, mainly because there just aren't any cheap pitchers to really feel comfortable with, and there are expensive bats. So the 2K savings from Skubal to Eovaldi helps, and the 1,200 savings from Radness to Eovaldi helps. So I'm in on Eovaldi. I'm completely out on Imanaga. How do you feel about Imanaga?
Didn't even make my short list, which I thought was wild. Now, Sims may have a little something to say about that differently, because again, we rely heavily on this, but I spent almost 3 hours writing up this slate in the afternoon slate. So I was digging through a lot of things, but the Sims, which is the flagship product here at Stochastic, they take into account all sorts of things that I don't, as I'm just researching, trying to figure out who's the best, why do I like somebody, parse it out, understand how the projections were created, and see where I want to go. But then the Sims take into account leverage, expected ROI, they're playing out the slates tens of thousands of times to see what the best combinations are, etc. So even when I look at it from sort of a, well, here's who I like better, that doesn't always end up in my what the Sims are pushing out. So then we have to decide, well, how much do I want to override machine learning / artificial intelligence? I don't know. Probably not too much, but circling back, that's what ends up getting some of these pitchers where you dismiss. Everybody's kind of dismissing them, and they shouldn't as much as they are. And then all of a sudden that becomes the way to go. So it's been an interesting exercise here, working with the Sims for almost a year. But I just wanted to call that out. But otherwise, if the matchup was in Chicago with neutral wind, maybe we'd be talking about him a little bit. The bit being in Great American Ballpark kind of knocks it down just a little bit here. Grayson Rodriguez is the other guy I wanted to call out here. Specifically, I'll drop the link into the chat, so you guys, if you want to see all my notes, I've got them here in the article. Free every day, Spotlight Pitchers Top Stacks article. Also have a wager of the day in there, and if you click on there, you can find some special deals that may or may not be offered elsewhere. Just throwing it out there as a little heads up, little incentive. But with Rodriguez here, gets the park upgrade going into Tropicana Field. Tampa Bay has the 5th fewest runs this year, the fewest home runs at 49. That's pretty bad. This is just the 34th start for Rodriguez, but he has proven himself to be a very exciting young pitcher here. The Tampa Bay lineup, let me see, because I think Paredes is not in the lineup today. He is not. So the Tampa Bay lineup ended up being Yandy Diaz, Brandon Brandon Lau, Josh Lowe, I have to say that appropriately. Randy Arozarena, Johnny DeLuca, Richie Palacios, Taylor Walls is back in the mix. Catcher Ben Rortvet, and then Jose Caballero. That's not a very exciting lineup. That lineup strikes out since the start of last year 23% of the time against righties. So I like Rodriguez with the ballpark upgrade here. Slight savings to Skubal, which is sort of why I landed with Riggins and Rodriguez as my two guys that I like. How are you feeling about this Tampa lineup? It feels like it just gets more and more watered down every time we look at it.
Yeah, I'm always fine with picking on Tampa. They're not great and they strike out a lot. So like they're better than like the Rockies and White Sox and those teams, but they haven't been great and they strike out a lot. So no issues with Rodriguez. He's been good. I don't think he's been like phenomenal, but he's been very good. And he's in a good spot. His price is up. So like I like Evaldi more just because of the savings. And I think they project very similar. But I think you feel better about Rodriguez's upside. Well, I think you feel a little bit better about Rodriguez all the way around just because Evaldi's coming off that injury and has only made 2 starts and hasn't gone over 70-some pitches. So, yeah, I think Rodriguez looks good here. I do think that Jarrett Jones is someone that's going to pick up ownership. How do you see him here?
So he is someone I'm hoping the Sims grants me around 15 to 20%. And sort of how I said, I will cap my starters at 35% each. That's just kind of how I want to do it, even if the Sims say take more, especially on a day like today where there are a variety of good options. Sometimes there'll be just 2 or 3 just real clear, way above everybody else that you're just like, all right, I'm riding with 70% of these guys. Let's see how it plays out. Today is not one of those days because you need multiple pitchers to fail here that are pretty good. And that makes it tough from that aspect. Guess my dog agrees with that as well, that now that she's just woken up from her nap. So for me, sliding down to the rest of the pitchers, Jones was on the short list. I was looking at trying to get him into a dynasty trade yesterday, but I don't have enough chips to get him over on my squad. But looking at his numbers, I don't want to say regressing. He's pitching right now about where we thought he would be. He came up like a house of fire. Right. He started off just well above anybody's expectations, which is great to see. What we've kind of seen in the last couple starts, it's like, okay, that's about where he's going to be, but that tantalizing upside is pretty good. So he's a guy I think we want to consider. But if you're hand building lineups, unless you're brilliant like One Fantasy Tips Matt, you guys can follow on Twitter over there. You may not think that next level, right? You just may make maybe a pivot decision. You're thinking 3 levels ahead or 3 steps ahead of people, and that's how you can get into the Jones category when you're building out just a couple of lineups here. So I think he's in the mix. Again, I'm doing 150, so I'm going to get him on a bunch of my teams anyway. How would you rank those guys?
So I'm not on Jones here. Okay. I was asking you because like I'm on the flip side. This is strictly from the tools for me.
Okay.
I'm on the Twins today.
Okay.
Yeah, they are popping in the top stack tool. Now I know it's very middled, like very muddied, I should say, like where a lot of teams are stuck together, but they really jump off the page for me. And Jones himself is below a bunch of the other pitchers we've talked about. He's still fine, but Rodriguez looks better, Imanaga, Evaldi, Skubal, and Reagan. So I don't mind Jones here because he's very good, and I think he has a lot of upside every start to start. But personally, I'm on some Twins bats today.
So I'm guessing you're taking a look at that near 50% hard hit rate from Jones across his grand total of 280 batters faced here in the majors. Twins have a lot of power. If we reach all the way back to the beginning of last season, their lineup against righties has a 180 ISO. We haven't seen most of them all healthy at the same time together. That is, now you've got Kepler, Kirilloff, Buxton, Jeffers, Correa, Larnack in there. Are they really leading off with Carlos Santana?
I think they did that to start the year too, and they've gone full circle because they stink again.
Yeah, I was not expecting that. Let me refresh this just to make sure that's where we are. So talk to us a little bit about the Twins since we don't have Eric Lindquist. If you guys want to get Lindquist's thoughts, they're not going to be about the Twins before this game, but tonight at 7:30 we do have NBA Live before lock. that will be on playback. We're on playback right now. I'll drop the link to that into the YouTube chat, but that is where producer Mike is sharing the screen, showing the sims, variety of other stochastic tools here. But we will be live broadcasting the game on that tonight, as well as live before lock. So check that out. We got to see the guys hang around for majority of the last game, at least I think up through halftime. I'm sure they will do so again today, as long as it's close and interesting. So do not forget about that. So turning it back to you, we're jumping ahead into stacks just for this one team, just for the Twins, but because I did not expect to see you get here. So talk to me a little bit about their power upside.
I didn't really either, but they are by far the highest leverage stack on the board today. I mean, not even close. 5.7% chance of being the top overall stack, 1.8% ownership. I like Santana at the top of this lineup. It's very stackable. You know, you obviously have 2 first basemen, but first and sixth, not really worried about that. You can obviously play both if you're playing multiple lineups. I think Jones gets love. Twins have been atrocious offensively in this series, so they could certainly continue to be bad. But I do think that, like, once they get going, it'll be a domino effect. And we haven't seen a ton of Jones get in trouble. So what happens then? There's always a lot of volatility in these young pitchers. So kind of just playing off that.
All right. I see in chat someone was, and sorry, I've got it closed here, but I want to give them a call out here asking about Kirby, George Kirby. So good pitcher. You were mentioning the home and road splits, and normally I don't get too into that. I think it's worth noting. It's a small-ish sample size, but they're absolutely correct. Kirby's worst starts have been on the road this year. Now, I think that's just probably happenstance, because if we start to look back, of course, ESPN, just nothing on ESPN works anymore. They don't give a shit about any of their products. So I don't have that up, but he does have 4 different starts where he's allowed 5 or more runs, and those have been on the road. It happened in the Beltway series where he was in Baltimore and then also in Washington, back-to-back starts. He allowed 2 home runs in each of those. He had a bad outing, if I remember, against Toronto. I think that was his biggest meltdown. No, his biggest meltdown was against Cleveland with 8 earned runs. Now, in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 games, he has just 2 outings of more than 4 runs. He gave up 4 to the Twins, but otherwise he's been 2 or less. So he's a decent pitcher. Last year, he led the league with his incredibly minuscule walk rate, but he doesn't get as many strikeouts as you would like. So he can get himself into trouble because he relies on his defense, low walk rate, and then inducing a lot of weak contact. But if that's not working, his strikeouts are okay. They're just not like Gilbert's per se, or Castillo. I mean, he has 1 per inning, but they come and go. And that's the big difference. So even when you get somebody that has like 1 per inning, and it's like, well, sometimes they get really lucky, and then you get a couple games where they have 3. That's not a consistent baseline. So I think it's a reasonable take. I wouldn't attack him because he's on the road, but I don't feel overly confident in rolling him out there. He's kind of a middling guy for me there. But what do you feel about Kirby? That's kind of the last line here of our pitchers to talk about.
I like Kirby as a pitcher. In general, his big thing is he just throws a ton of strikes. He fills the zone, doesn't walk guys at all. And he's really good. He is much better at home, like all these Seattle pitchers are. I mean, it makes sense. Seattle's such a good park to pitch in. So, yeah, I always like them better at home. Kirby for sure fits into that mold. But I feel kind of similar about Kirby and the Royals here. I think they're both fine. I probably don't get to either in minimal lineups. Like, Kirby is just fine for me. He's not out of play because there isn't a ton of great pitchers on this slate. He's expensive for the spot he's in, though. Kansas City doesn't strike out. They've been very good, especially the top of their lineup. I'd probably stack Kansas City before I got to Kirby today, but it's close.
Yeah, I don't think so. I see it was Free Scotty that mentioned it. I want to give him a hat tip there. Yeah, I wouldn't fight you over that at all. And even if I was, at the end of the day, and we come back and we see that Kansas City ends up with another 7 runs, it's all about getting the extra base hits. Kirby does a good job of limiting that, but it's all about getting the extra base hits. If they do, yeah, I would be completely unsurprised. But we got 20 teams in action. So let's figure out where we can turn next. Where we can turn is to presenting sponsor. That would be DraftKings. They have their Pick6 format that is available. I think it's up to 22 states now. But for the very first day you play Pick6, if it is available in your state, you get up to $200 as kind of a risk-free credit. So you want to be smart about it. You don't want to just jump in, play $5 or $10, because that's all you get, right? If you lose, you're going to get that back. But if you play it smart and figure out what you want to do, understand the strategies, pester the hell out of Eric Lindquist, who has had a lot of success with this. We also have these tools available on OddsShopper now that look at Pick6 as well. But in that first day that you play them, you do have a chance for a mulligan up to $200. It's their no stress Pick6 reward. So you guys want to check that out. It is there. And again, it's just on the first game. It's not even the first day. Technically, it's just the first game set. I think they usually only launch one set of picks per day, but it is key. So what is it over there? It's that new format where it's just you're picking props that are static lines. So they post those, and then they don't change them. But what they will do is prior to the lock of the contest, they will start adding a few more. Like think of like, well, I'm making this up because I'm not looking at it right now, but they may not have all the Boston players yet because they're trying to figure out, is Porzingis starting tonight or is he coming off the bench again, right? So they may not release those yet. But if there's weather issues or people are hurt, they kind of hold off on those. The key thing to remember about this, you can change your picks up until lock. You're leveraging against the field. So everybody's going to want to go with the 56.7% likelihood of the win. The leverage going in the other direction is massive. And we've got all that baked into the tools that are over there on OddsShopper. So you guys can check that out. But that is the DraftKings Pick6. All right, let's say some bad things about some pitchers now, Matt. You want to start with Bailey Ober?
Sure. I think he's a fine one to start with. I don't really have much bad to say about him, but
we're easing into it. He's not horrible. He hasn't been great. He's been kind of all over the board this season. Better matchup here against Pittsburgh. Is it going to change? I don't know. I don't really want to play him, but he was somebody that was on the short list of my season-long drafts this year. On those 20 or so pitchers I was trying to target in the middle to later rounds. He has been a little bit disappointing. You can sort of say the book is out on Frankie Montas. Disappointing time while he was with the Yankees. Now he's got to take on the Cubs in Great American Ballpark. That's not a feel-good situation. And then you got just a boatload of question marks. You got Zach Little, who's been okay. And by the way, almost every injured Tampa Bay pitcher is expected to be back by July. So they're going to have a whole new starting rotation here. But he's trying to hold his own, but he's got a tough matchup there against Baltimore. I like the under on his 4.5 strikeouts. That was available at I think -112. Every other site had it at like -125 today, but I believe it was FanDuel that was -112. Every other book, it was a negative proposition. It's okay. You kind of can use the OddsShopper market-based approach to find those ones that stand out, but I'm not a fan of Little. Hurston Waldrep, I don't know what to do with him. Not much of a track record, but he is going against Washington. Your boy Cookie Carrasco, it's been a great career. Hat tip to that, but that's almost over. I don't know what to do with Andre Palente. I definitely don't want to take DJ Hers or Ty Block. I'm looking at all the offenses against those guys. What do you have here? Is that because there's ample stacking opportunities ahead here?
Yeah, ton of good stacks for sure. Looks like as far as ownership goes, the Braves, Red Sox, and Cubs are going to be the highest owned, with the Cardinals right behind them. I like the Braves by far the most. I know they haven't been good, and if you don't want to play them because of that, I get it. But they're in a phenomenal spot on the road against the lefty. Guaranteed all 9 at-bats, atrocious bullpen. Everything sets up for Atlanta here to be the top stack on the board. Obviously, it doesn't mean it's going to play out like that, but they're also coming in, quote unquote, under-owned, where the Red Sox and Cubs are over-owned. So it's harder to get to Atlanta. So obviously that makes it more difficult, but that's part of the reason I like them, is because it's harder to get there. If it were easier, they'd be higher owned.
Yeah, agreed with that. And like I like the Cardinals, and as you mentioned, they're the fourth most popular stack. Hardly any. I think Atlanta was the only team in double digits last time I refreshed there. So things are spread out pretty well today. Finding differentiation is not going to be a problem whatsoever. The surprising one a little bit, but it comes down to just it's buy one get one free pricing on the Boston Red Sox. No Rafael Devers. He tweaked his knee yesterday, left in the 7th or 8th inning. You had Tyler O'Neill. He is out again with his knee soreness. He was on the DL for 10 or 11 days, came back, played 3 games, had 2 multi-hit games in his first 2 back, but then he is experiencing knee soreness again. So both of those guys are out. And then you've got I'm blanking on their leadoff guy, but he's on the injured list. He's in a rehabilitation assignment right now. Matsuyama. In any event, they're down their key 3 hitters. But what it's doing is it's putting a lot of prominent, or the understudies are getting prominent Sunday matinee roles against Chris Flexen, right? Who doesn't want Chris Flexen to be the villain that we get to attack, right? This is like perfect time to look to Boston. I was reading about DJ Hurst a little bit this morning, 12th ranked prospect in the Washington system. He came over from the Cubs, was part of that Jeimer Candelario trade at the deadline last year. They brought over another shortstop as well. Both of them were minor prospects at best. But now he's getting a spot start call up and potential audition for that 5th starter role on for the dilapidated Washington rotation here, but there's nothing really exciting about him. Deception is the name of the game with him. But if I remember correctly, he only has I think he had a 4-inning outing in the show this year, and I think he has 36 innings in AAA. So that's just 48 total innings above AA. All of that came this year. So he's pretty raw still. There's a lot of good ways to attack people here. If you're highlighting the Braves, which specific hitters? Because obviously Noah Acuna makes things very, very sad in Atlanta these days.
It does. I mean, Ozuna, there's no outfielder today over 6K. Ozuna is the highest priced outfielder, 5,900. Lefty master supreme. Love him here. I like the top of this lineup a lot, all the way down to d'Arnaud, Harris, Arcia. I would say I'd put Arcia in the first group. I don't like that he's sitting 8th, but he's only 3,300. Nice power against left-handed pitching. Harris and Kelenic seem like 2 of the odd guys out. That said, I want them if I'm fully stacking the Braves. Maybe in not my highest priority Brave stack, but if I'm playing a bunch of Braves, I want all of them. I mean, that's how I stack because I'm playing against the pitcher and the bullpen being bad.
I love the quote here saying that the Boston lineup is cheeks. For those who don't know, that means they're ass cheeks. That is from Trey McKell there. So all right, well let's hone in for a moment here on Boston, since they are our discount dandies that are bringing us to the promised land potentially. You've got Jarren Duran is the only expensive hitter in the lineup. You've got Emmanuel Valdez, who's been surprisingly effective at the plate. That has been impressive to see. You've got Dominic Smith batting cleanup because, hey, that's just where we are in Boston right now. He's an MLB lifer. You got Bobby Dahlbeck, human wind machine, is going to strike out at literally every other plate appearance. But he has power if he ever connects. He may never connect again. It feels bad. Connor Wong looks like a decent catching option. He's always good when he has righty matchups, especially against somebody like Flexen here. So there's a lot to like here, but the good thing about them is it lets you spend up on both pitchers or one pitcher and a premium stack. You can work in some good Atlanta stacks I'm seeing here. If you're going with the Red Sox, talk to us about the Red Sox here.
Man, yeah, the big problem with the Red Sox is how easy it is to play them in my eyes. They're going to be really, really popular, especially in higher dollar, single entry type stuff. And I get it. Chris Flexen stinks. The Red Sox lineup stinks too, but they're cheap. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to personally play the Red Sox because I know how highly owned they're going to be. That's why I like Atlanta more, but they look very, very good. Flexen's not good. They have a 14% chance of being the top value stack on the board. So the only thing not to like about them is ownership, but I think the ownership is a big concern.
Is there any player you'd leave out? Would it be like I don't have the individual ownerships up. I can go get that up. Would you leave out like a Ref Snyder or one of their more popular players just to get different and accept the rest of them against Flexen?
I don't know. I mean, again, I feel like if you're stacking Boston, like their whole lineup stinks. So why is there even anyone you want to skip? Because the players you're playing aren't even good except for a couple of them. So no, if I'm stacking Boston, I want all of them. And I think that stacking the bottom of the lineup is a nice way to get different in a chalky lineup.
All right, so let me just see here real quick. Boston. Yeah, you're right. They're all, oh my God, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 hitters at 10% or higher. Good God. That is pretty wild. It's almost like a Coors Field event. And that's because they are Connor Wong, 3,600, Ref Snyder, 39, Valdez, 36, Bobby Dahlbeck, 2,200, and has third base eligibility today. Dom Smith, 3,000. David Hamilton, who is that guy? He's a shortstop. He is 3,500. Yeah, only Jaron Duran is 5,200.
Like, I'll just say this. I don't even think playing Chris Flexen is crazy. I don't have much positive to say about him, except for the fact that he's very cheap on a slate without good cheap pitching options or out really any cheap pitching options that are viable. He's facing a bad lineup that's projected to be the highest owned on the board. Like, I just think that's all it is. I mean, you're playing GPPs to get to the top. Certainly his floor is very low, but I don't think it's crazy to look at him at 5,500. I really don't.
Okay, here's the counter to that. How many times has he had more than 4 strikeouts this season?
Yeah, I don't think you're using him because you think he's going to put up a big score. I think you're using him because if he just finagles his way through and somehow gets the win and limits the damage and gets you 15 points, you're killing a ton of the Boston lineups, most likely, not guaranteed, but most likely. And he's 5,500.
Yeah.
So you're playing off the bats going off. Again, you need a lot of things to work out your way, but you always need a lot of things to work your way to win GPPs. So just kind of a different path that I don't think is crazy to take.
No, it's a good one. And for anybody wondering, 3 times this season has he had more than 4 strikeouts. 6 2 games ago against Toronto. He got Washington for 5 in the middle of last month, and then at the start of last month, he got Tampa Bay for 8. So there you go. All righty. Anything else for stacks that we want to highlight here for the main slate?
I don't think so. A lot of good spots. Like Cleveland looks very good. They're uber expensive though, so they're still priced like they're in cores. St. Louis seems like the logical place to go to save some dollars against a bad tie block. Yeah, I think we're going to see St. Louis and Boston very, very high owned. Pieces of Atlanta, but I'm not worried about Atlanta's ownership at all, personally.
Anybody you'd pick on Carrasco with from Miami specifically?
Yeah, 2 guys I'd really like in Miami's lineup. I like the whole lineup. I think Miami's very stackable also, but for me, the 2 guys that I like most are Jazz leading off. He's, their best DFS commodity in my eyes. And then I really like the Xavier Edwards hitting 6th, 2,200, shortstop and second base eligible, had been hitting really well in the minors. He's up because Tim Anderson's on the bereavement list. Really good place to save some dollars at weaker positions with a guy who can run and in a great spot against Carrasco. I like Edwards a lot here as a one-off or in the stack.
All right. Well, since it is Sunday, I must call out Jesus Sanchez because, it's Sunday. I wanted to see what that St. Louis lineup ended up being. And then do you have any home run calls? Is it going to be Jazz Chisholm?
I'm going to go with Austin Riley.
Okay. We'll get over here to the Red Sox. Okay, so no real surprises there. You've got the best plays that are going to be Mason Wynn. You have Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado that are finally starting to come around against lefties. That is good. And then you got Nolan Gorman, who has a solid history in lefty-lefty matchups. So those are the core guys that you're going to look at there. Let's see, where is my home run is going to be, Cody Bellinger. There he is, going against Frankie Montas. Let's hit the later slate here. Again, let's filter on that. It's just a 3-gamer, so nothing too crazy. You've got Justin Verlander and then a whole bunch of youngsters. So it is pretty crazy how many unproven pitchers are there in Bowden Francis, Mitch Spence, Adam Mazur. You've got Scott McGough starting as the opener, but then Henry is going to be back up. He was down in the minors where he was walking everybody, like literally everybody. So let me go find what Tommy Henry is up to. Henry, he had in his
I was right.
Oh, go ahead.
The Seattle lineup just came out, which is crazy. It came out a little bit ago, but Locklear is who they called up, and he's starting at first.
Okay. We'll circle back to that in just a sec. Tommy Henry went down to AAA Reno. He made, probably about 6 starts would be my guess. He had 32 and a third innings. He had 6 walks per 9. That is not good. He did have nearly a strikeout per inning, but 6 walks per 9. That is not going to play in the show. So he is the guy you want to attack. Verlander is the guy you probably want to roster, potentially followed by Patrick Sandoval, as terrifying as that is, going against Houston. Houston has not been as consistent and as good. They've been solid in this series against Anaheim, but their offense is nowhere near what we have come to expect over the last decade this season. But Sandoval looks reasonable. The rest of the guys are all question marks. So that's kind of an interesting spot. Anything you want to throw out there on the 3-game late slate, other than confetti in the air and hope you get the right mix of players?
Yeah, I mean, even like Verlander, I don't love here. It's good.
It's not great. His strikeouts have been. We talk about strikeouts coming and going. That's Verlander now. He has multiple games with 4 or fewer strikeouts. I'd never thought we'd see that. But then again, was he 41 or 42 now? To be perfectly fair, we need to recalibrate what our expectations are from him. But even he has not been consistent. He's just the most proven commodity of everything.
Oh, by far. And he's in a good spot. So for me, this slate looks kind of simple. Like just how I look at it from a 30,000-foot view. Bowden Francis is not good, and he's getting 48% ownership. Give me 2 other pitchers, and I'll stack Oakland and call it a day.
What's the name of the prospect? How do you spell his last name for Seattle?
Locklear. Locklear.
Gene? No,
I'm not sure.
Tyler.
Yeah, that sounds right.
To it. There we go. All right. So let's see what we've got here. Let's show his. So Virginia VCU for 3 years. He's been in the minors. He was with AA this year. Last year, he had about 40 at-bats at AAA. Okay. I'm not doing cartwheels over him. I don't think he's bad. He's going to be 24 in November, so he's 23 now. He was a 2nd-round draft pick in 2022. We'll see. Right-hander. I don't know. I'm running out of superlatives. Then there weren't many to start with.
Yeah, for sure.
FanGraphs. Let's see what FanGraphs has to say real quick, just because this is always fun.
Quick question for you.
Yes.
I see the Braves game is starting in a delay. Is that worrisome at all? Because I know we had talked about no weather, and I'm not seeing any. I don't think it should be a problem, especially because it's only going to, it starts at 1:30 their time. Even if they need to delay it 2 hours, it should be fine. My hesitation comes from the fact that it's Washington.
Oh God, it is in Washington. Yeah, but there's no other rain. There's literally no, like, it's 80 with 40% humidity for the
Okay.
rest of the
So
day.
we're playing it, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't see any issue. Right now, there's a, yeah, you mentioned you Washington, 9% chance of rain. Hey, guess what? That means there's a 9% chance of rain. Apparently, it's happening right now. That literally goes to 0 from 4 o'clock. So unless they are, you know, magically seeding the clouds right above National Stadium, I don't think it's going to be a thing. Plus, they called, don't they want to see their rookie go? They called him up. So we shall see. We shall see. Let's see. What else do we have? Re-encompass your top stacks here for the early slate for those people that are here. I'm going to see if there's any questions in chat, and then we will slide on out of here.
So for me, my top stack is clearly the Braves. I think they're the best stack on the board by far. They're expensive, so I think that'll keep their ownership down. And then, you know, so I'm not just stating the obvious because, you know, we know the Cubs and Boston look good. My contrarian stack is going to be the Twins. Got huge winds blowing out in Pittsburgh. Like, this is one where I'm really trusting the tools. I kind of like the Twins anyways, but I like them a lot after seeing the tools. So I'm on the Twins pretty heavy here, knowing it's a big boomer bust spot, but the upside is massive and they're not going to be owned. They are not only, this is crazy. So they're 5th overall in the top stack tool. They are the lowest owned team on the slate, which is wild. Usually some of the scragglers at the bottom will be lower owned, like Boston, San Fran. All these teams are getting more love than Minnesota. And Minnesota's really high in the tools. Like, I'm sure we're going to see a lot of lineups from like Tom and Steve Buzzard with Twins. I want to be on their side.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Those guys have done quite a bit of winning with these sims over here at Stochastic. But you know, we also have, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the Sims Lite or the lineup generator here. Hopefully producer Mike will be able to put that on the screen. But I want to remind everybody we have this for the main slates for baseball. How it works is you play the main slate on either DraftKings or FanDuel. You get to choose your lineup types. You can hone in on chalky, balanced, or contrarian, or you can accept all of the above. You can lock in a pitcher if you choose. You can also lock in a hitter if you choose. On DraftKings, you can choose your stack type as well, 5-3, 4-4, and 5-0. On FanDuel, it is 4-4, 4-3, and 4-2-2. It is a good way to build stuff out. If you hit the balanced setting, you can come pretty close to putting together some decent cash game lineups, especially for baseball, where cash games are a little bit different than the other sports. So let's have Mike do this. Let's do FanDuel today. So if we go on to FanDuel, let's pick 4 stacks. We'll do all stack types. Let's not lock in a pitcher, and let's build out some lineups here. So what Mike is doing is he's going to build out a few lineups. You can build out up to 20. FanDuel lets you do a little bit more for some unknown little glitch there, but you can build those out. You can kick them on over into the portfolio page. Once you get onto that page, you can look on the right side. If you highlight a player, it will then highlight their lineups, bring them all up to the top. On the left side, you can see if do you like a lineup, do you not like a lineup? Hey, maybe this is a little bit chalky. You want to go take a pitcher out and put in a different pitcher. You can do that. You can do that with any of the position players. Just takes a little quick mental math to make sure you stay under the salary cap, but it does give you some flexibility there. This is built off of all of the Stochastic platforms, so it's encompassing, you know, everything that's in the Sims, the boom bust tool, the lineup, the player ownership or popularity projections, the player projections, taking into account leverage, where the field's going to be, all that good stuff. Sims it out tens of thousands of times, and then it's going to give you lineups here. These are all going to be positive expected value lineups. And there is very, 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 very little overlap ever, especially in baseball. We could have Matt, Mike, and I could probably sit here for about an hour and we could each click and build out lineups, and we'd never build out the same lineup. Because with baseball, it's very easy to slot in some random outfielder or infielder from another team that is 4% owned and giving everybody a unique lineup. So wanted to call that out there. That is the stochastic lineup generator. All right, I think that hits everything for us today here. Any final thoughts that you gotta get out there for the people?
I don't think so. Should be a fun Sunday slate. I like these. I love Sunday slates where the games all start very close together. So should be a fun one. And I look forward to getting on here again next week with you.
Excellent. So we've got the one game at 105. The rest go off at 1:35 tonight. At 7:30, we have the NBA live before lock, because we have game 2 of the NBA finals. So that is going to be available both on YouTube and playback. And then after the show, you will get to see, I think it's Eric and it's Lindy and Josh, I believe, tonight. They'll hang out for at least the first half, talking sports wagering, their reactions to the ownership in the DFS tournaments. And then we'll also get to see how Joe Mazzulla and Jason Kidd are adjusting for game 2, to see if there's any strategy changes. And the big one is going to be anything new with Kristaps Porzingis. Does he slide into the starting role? I don't think he does this game, but we already saw him and Horford play essentially until they got to garbage time. One of them was always on the court, and they had almost 6 minutes of overlap. So no surprise there. I suspect the Porzingis will be around 25 to 26 minutes tonight, because, hey, they keep him healthy throughout this one. They can probably walk through this with a gentleman's sweep, just based on how it went in game 1. But they play these games for a reason. With that, you guys can follow Matt on Twitter at Fantasy Tips Matt. You can find me at EMac DFS. And of course, it is stochastic_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.